The Fan.
Head over to the KFAN contest page and register for your shot at a pair of early screening passes to see the last voyage of the Demeter on Wednesday, August 9th. KFAN.com, keyword contest to enter.
Paul Allen in noon to 3 today, live from Vikings training camp. So the Tenna Fitzgerald, Tenna B here in 9 to noon. Max is with me. Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune, will join about 12 minutes from now. Mark Rosen will be here in studio in the 11 o'clock hour. Max, we always got to talk about the National Football League.
He's into the end zone for the touchdown.
Time now for obligatory daily NFL headlines.
Former Vikings running back Dalvin Cook, a free agent still. If you remember, he visited the New York Jets during the final weekend of July. He even told Good Morning Football the odds were, quote, pretty high he would sign with the Jets. Well, a week has passed since. No deal has come to fruition between the four-time Pro Bowler and the club. So the waiting game continues. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport provided a quick update on the situation during Sunday's inside training camp, saying that there's still a lot of, quote, mutual interest between the two parties. Rappaport said, quote, it would make a lot of sense. It just seems like both sides are kind of waiting before they move a little bit closer toward a signing. It would not be a surprise, though, if that ended up happening. I'll be honest, Max, I don't have inside information. I have felt like from the get-go that Dalvin Cook was going to end up being a Miami Dolphin. It just made the most sense. He's from Miami. The backfield there is a little muddier.
Yeah.
Where you've got Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, and they drafted Devon Achane, who's more just kind of a speed specialist. But in terms of, hey, here's a role where a guy could be a number one, play in front of family, just made sense to me. Miami would be there. Now, Dalvin may have overvalued himself, maybe thought he was worth a lot more than he is at this stage of his career. So maybe he's just, I'm guessing he's not getting the contract offers financially that he was hoping for. But the other part is the Jets were interested. New England was interested. And I'm looking at those backfields and I'm going, the Jets have Breece Hall, who maybe he's still beat up a little bit, right? So right. I guess if he's not 100%, that would make sense that they're kind of they're in a small window now with Aaron Rodgers where, hey, we're trying to win now. We're trying to win. But like if Breece Hall's healthy, Breece Hall probably at this stage of his career is better than Dalvin Cook at Dalvin's stage of his career. Not saying
all time.
Yeah. 3 years ago, Dalvin, no. But where, Dalvin did not have a great year last year. And I don't care what the stats say. He just did not look as explosive as he has previously. So I would just think if Breece is healthy that he's better than Dalvin. So why would you go get Dalvin? New England has Ramondre Stevenson, who might be one of the more underrated backs in the league, who's pretty darn good.
And they're a running back by committee kind of offense anyways, so he wouldn't really have the same number one
Dalvin,
opportunity.
I just don't know what I felt the whole time like the Jets and Patriots are just in there to push up the price on Miami.
Yeah.
Right? Like
that's kind of what it feels like.
We all know Miami's destined to get them.
So I think there was even Buffalo at that point.
Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's what I felt the whole time. That's been my theory. And so far, he hasn't signed with anybody. I will say, should the Vikings be interested?
I mean, why not?
I mean, has Dalvin... I don't know what Dalvin's asking for at this stage. But, I'm guessing the Vikings at the time offered him reduce your contract and stay here. He didn't want to do that. Went down to the open market and has probably realized, well, maybe I'm not going to make as much money as I should. The Vikings have less salary cap space than Miami and the Jets, but not by a ton. The Jets have $15.9 million. Dolphins have $12.8. The Vikings are at $10.2. Right? So those two teams have a little bit more space available. But if the Vikings want to sign a Dalvin Cook, they can afford him. And I'm guessing Dalvin ain't getting any more than $10 million. Otherwise, he'd already be signed at those other two teams. Maybe we should bring him back.
I would be completely open to it. I mean, we've done the double-headed running back thing before. Him and Alexander Madison, I think, would be a great 1-2 combo. And
did you just say double-headed running back?
Yeah, double-headed running back.
Okay.
And yeah, the price has obviously gone down since whatever he thought his price was.
Yes.
That's not the price that he's going to get paid, and so the price has gone down. I do think it's
Let's give him
odd, though.
$5-6 million. Bring him back.
Why not? Dalvin Cook has been the one out of all these kind of notable running backs that are free agents that's had interest the entire time. From the moment he was released, he's had interest from other teams, and he's still not signed. So I just find that fascinating because I don't hear anything about Zeke.
Ezekiel is done.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything
washed.
about Josh Jacobs.
Leonard
really.
Fournette's pretty old. I mean, Jacobs technically still under Raiders control, I think. The other name...
Obligatory daily NFL headlines.
I've always thought, in terms of pure football, the best running back available right now might be Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
He hasn't taken as many hits, hasn't had as many carries as Dalvin Cook. Now, Kareem clearly has had some off-the-field issues in the past, which led him to only be able to get the job at Cleveland, where he had to be a backup running back, even though he was at starter-level talent. I've always thought just on the field, he's a really, really good running back. But clearly has not had a ton of interest, though he's working out with the Saints today, and so is linebacker Anthony Barr.
Oh.
He's working out with the New Orleans Saints today as well. I always feel like that's got to be like quite the hit to your ego. Like Dalvin's probably experiencing it right now. Like Anthony Barr had a big contract, making Pro Bowls as a linebacker, had a good career, and then all of a sudden you're
trying out.
You're scraping for, could I have a tryout with the New Orleans Saints to have a shot to barely make the roster?
Right, on a team that's garbage.
And it happens to everybody, right?
Yeah.
It happens to every athlete, but I can't imagine the ego hit that comes from that.
Obligatory daily NFL headlines.
I love whenever there's Packers discussion. The Packers, obviously, they're turning the page from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love at quarterback, which means his teammates are now putting themselves in a spot where they got to have his back. Following a spirited rant from Adam Shine of CBS Sports Network regarding the struggles of the offense under Love, Packers linebacker Devondre Campbell took up for Love on Twitter. Here's what Shine initially said. He said, quote, "I loathe Love, despise Love. I mean, everyone looks great during preseason practices, except apparently for Jordan Love, who by his own admission has struggled. I mean, this is a flat-out debacle. It's also predictable because Jordan Love can't play football. Simple as that. Jordan Love can't do a damn thing. This is going to be a predictable disaster with Jordan Love in Green Bay." That's pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
So, Devondre Campbell, Packers linebacker, former Golden Gopher. I loved his tweet. Here's what he tweeted. "Ain't no way you just got on here with that baggy-ass Steve Harvey suit and them thick-ass Dollar Tree glasses and disrespected my QB by saying he can't play football. He only has one career start. Let him play at least half a season before you open your big dumbass mouth." I agree with Devondre Campbell. What are we doing going off of
Preseason.
not even preseason, training camp practices.
Right.
Training camp practices. There was a day, Max, where Tavares Jackson was just brilliant in OTAs. And I believe one of the comments from someone on the Vikings is like, he's like a Jedi mind out there. Like, he's able to dissect the play before it happens. And he had an awful career.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get anything out of it. Like, even training camp right now, other than injuries and seeing who's playing with the ones and twos, like, you can't take anything away from anything, really, for the most part, what's being done. So I agree with Devondre Campbell. Can we let him play half a season before we start ripping the heck out of him?
I mean, yeah, a lot of people seem to be preying on the downfall of the Packers. And I mean, you're not going to get any tears from me if that day comes, but a lot of people are already prematurely reporting the demise of Jordan Love. And at least give him a chance, man. I mean, the organization at least has proven that you have to give these guys a chance because they've had, 3 decades straight of Hall of Fame quarterback play. Not saying Jordan Love is going to be Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, but you at least have to give the organization a chance because they've shown that they see talent.
We're out of time, so I didn't get to the Joe Mixon being sued over a shooting on his property story, which I had not read anything about until today. And there's a lot of info here that we don't know about. There's like Nerf wars going on outside, like a high school kid was doing Nerf wars in his yard, and they apparently can't tell the difference between a Nerf gun and a gun, so somehow the kid got shot.
Jesus.
And Joe Mixon's sister was like hiding evidence. Like, it's just, there's something going on with that story, but we don't have time for it. Chip Scoggins from the Star Tribune, he's in studio with me, Tenna B, for the next 2 segments right here on The Fan.
iHeartRadio app.
Minnesota credit unions and iHeartRadio are spreading the word about how credit unions take your money further. When you see the Minnesota Credit Union's iHeart car out at station events, show us you have a credit union credit or debit card and win a $25 gift card from us. Go get them while supplies last.
Tenna Fitzgerald moves along. Like I said, Paul Allen, live from training camp at noon to 3 today, in for the Common Man. So Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune, he joins me now. Chip was already going to be in studio for your Pair and a Spare podcast with Justin Gard and is it Ryan Burns?
Ryan Burns,
yes. I'm assuming lots to talk about. And that's actually what I wanted to get in with you first is, I mean, what's going on here with the future of college football specifically, and this affects obviously all the sports, but college football specifically, are we going to end up with just 2 or 3 super conferences someday? What's the future here? Because obviously the Pac-12 is just going to break up, are they not?
I would think so. Yeah, it seems like that conference is going to be dead here. I think that quite possibly and maybe likely will be the end game scenario where you have, because all this realignment and the shuffling of the deck, it's all driven by football, right? That's all that these TV executives care about, is the football. And so you do wonder if we are headed towards a football, whatever you want to call it, breaking away and having their own thing, and then everyone else going back to more regional
would make sense.
Conferences.
Yeah.
That may be, another 5-10 years down the line, but I wouldn't surprise me if that's what happens, because we're moving more and more and more towards a professional model with college football, and they're trying to do it with all these other sports, or they're getting dragged along with it. So, yeah, it's right now there's basically it's going to be 3 power conferences that are 16 schools or higher. I don't think the Big Ten, once they add Oregon and Washington, they're going to be at 18. I don't think they're stopping there. I could see them being at 20. And so do they go look at Stanford or Cal? Do they look at maybe some ACC teams? I know Virginia and North Carolina have been 2 teams or 2 schools that have been thrown out there. Florida State's school president came out last week and told their board of trustees that if that conference doesn't redo their revenue distribution, that they're going to look to leave. Oh boy! So it's basically every school for itself at this point, and everybody
amateur athletics ain't it great?
It's great, yeah. And everybody, because the TV revenue distribution is so much, there's such a disparity even within the Power 5. The Big Ten and SEC are way above everyone else, and so the other schools in those conferences are looking at as they're getting left behind. And the Florida State president said that they're in line to make $30 million annually less than schools in the Big Ten. It's a lot of money.
Yes.
And if you're Florida State.
Yeah.
And he essentially said, hey, we're more valuable to the ACC than, he didn't say schools, but by how he phrased it.
Than Wake Forest.
And North Carolina State. So why should we get the same revenue share as them?
Sure.
When we're bringing in, we're the reason, he wants a greater share of the revenue distribution. So I don't know.
Is the SEC going to expand anymore and add like a Florida State? I mean, it seems like that would be a good fit. But.
Yeah, they've sat quietly here as all this has happened in the last 2 weeks. My guess is both the Big Ten and the SEC want to get to 20. For me, like if you're the
That's
big,
a lot.
It doesn't feel like a conference, does it? When you have 20 schools, but to me, 20 makes more sense than 18 because then you can have 4 or 5 team pods or divisions or whatever. And then if you're football, you have 4 of those. Winner of each pod or division,
Yeah.
They go to a semifinals, and then you have a championship game, and think about the revenue that would produce. So, but I do think eventually we're going to get to a football-only organization, for lack of a better word, and they just play football and they govern themselves, and then everybody else falls back into the more traditional model.
Why doesn't the NFL just have their own minor league system?
Well, that's, it's a lot of people ask that question, and
it's hard at this point to break that tradition, but
it is, because the model's been smashed by what we're seeing now, and I think there is that feeling like don't just halfway do it. If this is the way you're trending and it's becoming semi-pro and you're operating like that model, then just go ahead, go all the way. And so I think eventually you may have a football commissioner that runs however many schools you want to make it, 40, whatever the number is, and they just play high level college football.
So my question, I posed this question to Common and Rosen towards the end of one of the shows last week, as this was kind of breaking, that Oregon and Washington were joining. We're talking about adding teams. Mm-hmm. Would they ever remove teams from the conference, right? Like now it's getting to the point where we're bringing in all these power schools, and there's Rutgers.
Yeah.
There's Purdue and Northwestern, and Minnesota hasn't been good at, I shouldn't say good. Minnesota hasn't been great at football in quite some time.
It's interesting. Ralph Russo, who's the AP college football and basketball writer, longtime scribe who's followed the sport for many, many years. He had a column about that today, and it was interesting because he said, these TV executives really only care about the high-profile games. They want these big marquee games, right? So the brand schools. And his point was, they wanted Oregon and Washington. They don't care about Oregon State and Washington State.
Yep.
So would they ever get to a point, this is the example he used, where you look at the Big Ten and say, we just want Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, these big games. Why do we care about Purdue? Why are we paying for Purdue?
Yeah.
Will they get to that point where they do that? I don't know. But in that scenario where we're talking about where if they, a group of schools break away and just do football only, are they going to include everybody? Is everybody going to get an invitation?
Sure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Is Northwestern going to get an invitation? Is, the bottom of these conferences, the bottom teams, are they going to get...
Where's Minnesota on that hierarchy? That's my question.
Yeah, well, without knowing like who makes the cut, how many they want, who... if you look at success here under Fleck, they're competing for a Big Ten West. They're not at the bottom, but historically and how bad they've been before they got to this point, it'd be interesting to see how they're viewed. If you ask a TV executive, they're probably not high on the list of who they're wanting, to get there, but you can't just have, 20 teams. If you're going to do that, it would have to be a large number. So it's a fascinating topic. I think first, the next step is, you're going to see maybe 3 truly power conferences of 20. And right now that looks like the 2 big ones, Big 10, SEC, and then probably the Big 12 with who they're adding. Pac-12 is going to be done. I'm curious to see what happens with the ACC, if they can hang in there. And, it seems like it's getting fractured right now with what Florida State's saying. Will there be temptation for, North Carolina or these other schools to go join the Big 10? But I think that's the next step. And then if they do get to that football only group, how big and how many?
They kind of have to, right? Like we can't have softball traveling from USC to Minnesota, and you know what I mean?
Well, imagine
or track and field or
think about it, like
tennis.
Yeah, tennis.
Do we still have a tennis program? I don't even know what we have anymore.
But it's like, okay, Washington has to play Rutgers in softball. So you're going to fly across the country for a softball series?
Yeah.
And how expensive that would be, timing, just... And I know the athletic directors in the Big Ten are really trying to figure out creative ways to make that work, because these other sports don't just play once a week and not on the weekends. There's midweek trips that they're going to have to figure out. And so I saw a story, I read a story, I think it was The Athletic last week, where some of the ADs are talked about even having different schools share charters and go and,
Sure.
if it's go.
You almost have to make like a 4-team series out of it, where they can play multiple teams at different. Yeah,
they will do that now that you have this West Coast wing with the 4 schools out there. So the Gophers will go out there and play multiple. You'll play USC and UCLA, right?
Yeah.
In those other sports, you'll do that. Oregon, Washington, you'll pair up and play them. So you'll get a 2-for-1, and that's that helps alleviate some of it, but it's not going to solve all of it. So it's not like jumping on a bus and being somewhere in X number of hours. So the travel is going to be a lot more expensive. It is going to require athletes to miss more school time, and if you don't believe that, these TV executives and administrators are being naive if they think it's not going to put more stress on the athletes in terms of how much school time they miss, the studying and all that. So, and that still should matter, right? The fact that they're going to school. And so they have a lot to figure out, and they already came out with the schedules for next year. So now they're going to have to redo that to add in Oregon and Washington.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to see how they make that work.
Chip Scoggins, columnist, Star Tribune. He's going to be in studio with me for one more segment. Definitely going to talk a lot of Twins and Vikings next. If you want to join us, you can text at 64686. That's the Bradshaw Bryant inbox. You can also email booth@kfan.com for any topics, suggestions, comments, or questions for Chip Scoggins.
On the Fan.
For the love of money.
The 2023 Fantasy Football Training Camp is almost here. Join the Fantasy Football Weekly crew at Treasure Island Resort and Casino Saturday, August 12th at 10 a.m. for a live broadcast. Then stick around for an off-air deep dive and chances to win great prizes. KFAN.com keyword calendar for more info.
All right, Tenna Fitzgerald in. Chip Scoggins of the Star Tribune, columnist, joins me for one more segment. Mark Rosen will be here at 11 o'clock today. Email booth@kfan.com. Chip says, question for Chip. What is the future of Byron Buxton with the Twins? He writes, he's a failure as a DH. He can't field. There's a lot of money tied up in this.
I honestly have no idea, because I wrote this, was this 6 weeks ago or whatever. I went out there and I talked to Buxton as when he was in one of his, bad stretches at the plate. And I asked him, would playing in the outfield, would that help you at the plate? And those, two different things, but because he had so much joy playing the outfield, and maybe, you would have to just sit around for 2 innings to
distract you.
Yeah. And he said, yeah. And so then that's when I asked, I kind of pressed Rocco on it, and he got excited about it and a little animated. Like, as I wrote, it felt like a parent had heard, are we there enough one too many times?
Yeah. Are we there yet?
Yeah. And he's like, that's when he did it. He physically can't play. He can't do it. And I remember thinking,
do you know any more about that?
No,
even that comment is.
Yeah, that's when Rocco said, it's not getting worse, but he's not getting any better. And I'm like, that was alarming.
Yes.
Like, you're this point in the season and he's not showing any progress? Like none? Like he's at the same point that he was when you went to training
he's good
camp?
enough to run bases?
Yeah. And so if he was at that point now in his career, you don't get better physically as you age, right? Your body breaks down even more. And now he's on the IL again.
I can relate.
Yeah. And so I don't know where this is going. I honestly don't. Is he now a career DH? And even that he's not very good at. He might hit an occasional home run, but the strikeouts. So they signed him to a $100 million contract. And, I don't know if they had an inkling that this was the way it was going to go. I don't know if it's, this chronic knee problem or leg problem, whatever he has, but it's the fact that he was not showing any progress through the season with all the rehab and all the different things that they have available to him tells me that it seems like there's a very good chance that we've seen him play his last center field.
And that's not good.
And that's
half
a
the value. 5-tool player.
That's half the value.
Yeah.
Or more than half the value, because he's not a very good DH. And so I don't know if they have a long-term plan with it or if they're just going week by week with it, but it's not good.
Well, what I found alarming was when Rocco made the comment that you just said about he's basically not capable of playing center field. Can you reveal to us what is the issue? And two, like if this is something where he can't play center field in the future, like we should, is this a temporary thing? Can he not play in the future? Because that has a big impact on his value.
Yeah, and I don't know that they know that, but and that was the question because a lot of we hear it too, and it's a natural comeback is like, so he's not healthy enough to play center field, but he can run the bases, swing the bat, do all that. And I forgot the way Rocco phrased it, but it was basically he's just barely treading water by being a DH. Like that's all he can do. That's the most he can do. Wow. So if he added the other side of it too, that he wouldn't be able to.
I want to know if resting him would help out for next year. You're right. I mean,
that's that was the comeback. It's like, would you just shut him down? Would that help? But if it's chronic, I don't know. Right. I don't know. So it's perplexing, and I don't know that we've ever really been given the exact diagnosis of what it is that is preventing him from being a well-rounded all-around baseball player. But the DH thing clearly does
and if it is chronic, did we learn of it after his contract?
Well, yeah, it doesn't suit him, and I think you can tell it's just when he strikes out, then he has to go sit and wait, and it's just not a comfortable thing for him. Like some guys, they're fine with it, just hitting, and that's fine. For him, it's not.
Well, his defense was something that he knew he could always add to the team, right? Like mentally, it's like I can always be a strength and a plus to this team by playing the defense I can.
And that's what he said when I asked him. He said, yeah, because if I struck out, I knew I'm going to go out there and take a run away from him. I can make a catch or do something that I'm going to impact the game that way. Now he can't do that, and so I don't know how much mental effect that has on him, on his hitting too, but it just doesn't seem like this is a role that he's going to be comfortable with.
Ben writes at booth at KFAN.com, I was wondering what your thoughts are of the Twins' moves or lack thereof at the deadline. It was pretty clear early in the week that Cleveland was going to hand us the division. I think most people would agree the Twins have essentially zero chance to win a series no matter who they play, even with a 3-game series at home. So would we have been better off trading some high-end pitching that you tend to get a decent return on, like Sonny and Maeda, who will probably leave after the season anyway?
Yeah, I wrote a column the day of the trade deadline saying I would not have traded, or I would not trade any high prospects like they did last year. I just didn't think this team had earned that, right? Normally when you do that, you're saying, I believe in this team, the way they play, we're going to bolster it and fortify it, and we're going to make a run. I don't think you could, based on what we saw up to the deadline, how could you sit there and have that kind of confidence that this team is prime for that, right? Now, I thought they should have made some moves, right? I don't know what Joey Gallo, I don't know if he has any value. A lot of us thought Kepler maybe, but now he's got hot, and maybe he'll reward that faith and patience they had in him. The pitching one, as the emailer said, Sonny Gray and Maeda that was interesting because I would like to know what kind of calls and what kind of offers they got for them, because I don't think either one of those pitchers is going to come back. So would you be better off, trying to get some prospects or maybe another player to solidify, maybe get a right-handed at bat in the lineup? I would have loved to know what they did or what they heard from teams, because I probably would have made that move, because obviously Cleveland waved the white flag at the deadline. They weakened themselves, so they basically just handed over the division. If you don't take it now, there's something seriously wrong. So, but in saying all that, the reason I said I wouldn't have done prospects, because what proof do we have that this team is going to do anything in the playoffs, right? They've lost 18 straight postseason games, and until they do something in the postseason, I think the pessimism is always going to remain with this team.
The mantra of Minnesota sports, until they do something in the postseason. What did you make of Joe Ryan, who was having a great start to the season, pitches that complete game shutout? The following game against Atlanta, apparently he did something to his groin in the pregame stretching, and has been 7 starts now. Not a start or two, 7 starts. It's always as a fan, you always want players to battle through injuries. Buxton has taken so much heat over the years about injuries. Like, go out there and basically throw some Robitussin on and get out there. Yet, when you're also not performing and putting the team in a tough spot where 7 games there, he has not been pitching well. What'd you kind of think of the whole Joe Ryan situation, and not even going to his trainers and telling him what was up?
Yeah, you can't have that. That just can't be accepted. If it's, there is an element of toughness and fighting through it that we all love, but if it's impacting your performance to the degree that it was with him, I mean, 17 home runs in 7 games, and he clearly something everybody saw was like, what's going on? Something, are they figuring him out? Did he hit a wall? And then to come back and say, yeah, I've been dealing with something that I've kept to myself. Alert somebody.
How do you not tell trainers and have them try to fix it?
Exactly. Like, maybe you can miss a start or two and then come back. It's like, that's the frustrating thing, is like, you let it linger until it was a major problem where his last start, he's out there changing his wind up, taking off long sleeve shirts, trying these different things to get himself right. And then to reveal that, he's been dealing with this injury is like, that can't happen. I mean, you can't do that. You have to alert the trainers, and then they'll come back to you, right? If you have to miss 2 starts, you're not going to lose your spot in the rotation. So,
especially the way he was pitching,
I could see why the organization was frustrated with that.
They should be very frustrated. That being said, we got to see Dallas Keuchel yesterday.
Yeah,
did you watch him?
I did. I watched a couple innings. Is about probably what you thought, right? Not going to throw really hard, but get a lot of ground balls, and he got some help by his defense. We'll see what they do with him and how long he stays. But
he also had some unfortunate hits go against him. They were just like soft grounders that they're barely touching the ball.
Yeah, and Wallner made the diving catch. I think Castro made a really nice grab at third base there. So he got some help. He got a little unlucky too, but it went about probably better than you could expect if that's your first start out in the majors this year.
Did you see the Joe Mauer ceremony at all? The tribute on Saturday.
I was gone. I did not get to see it. Unfortunately, it's interesting. I covered when I first moved to Minnesota. I came here to cover preps for the Star Tribune, and Joe was that was his senior or junior year, and so I got to know him as a junior and senior. And we used to have him down for our all Metro teams. We'd have basketball or whatever. They would come down and take pictures in our photo studio there. So I got to know him and his family a little bit that way. I was there when he went to Elizabethton, his first pro game with his older brother. I went down there to Tennessee and chronicled that. So the thing that was always cool to me is like, he never changed. Like, no, that guy was the same guy. I remember I called him.
Still is.
It still is. Like, I remember calling him at home one night, and it was when the Florida State decision was he going to take the football scholarship to Florida State or sign with the thing, or sign with the baseball. And I called his mom. Teresa answered and said, "Yeah, is Joe there?" And she's like, "Yeah, he's studying for a chemistry test." And he called back, and I was like, "I'm getting blown off." Then he calls back. He's like, "Yeah, I had to finish my chemistry study." I mean, that's how he was. Yeah, and he never changed throughout. I mean, just as gracious, humble, and I'm glad to see in this post career, and his kids are beautiful and lovely, and it sounds like he's kind of settled into post retirement.
Did you ever watch him play football or basketball in high school?
Oh yeah, I covered all the things, and football was great. I remember I went to watch him in basketball one year, and there was a Division I. It was the senior year. There was a Division I assistant coach there, and I don't know if he was recruiting him or probably someone else. But I said, "How good is Joe? Like, what level can he play at?" And he's like, "Oh, Division I for sure, mid-major, if not higher." Like, he was that good. It was his third sport.
His third best sport.
His third. Now, I think he loved basketball growing up as probably as much as the other ones, but he was that good. His third sport, he would be a Division I and a high Division I level player. It's crazy.
Do we ever have any theories as to how he became like this athlete he was, right? Like, he wasn't like this, I remember seeing him in the Twins locker room with his shirt off back early in his days. And it's not like he was some
He's
sculpted.
not Daniil Hunter.
No, he's not. No, he's not Daniil Hunter. He's not like sculpted. He didn't have like bulging biceps. Just a guy who clearly just had amazing hand-eye coordination. Well, were they training something differently, or was it just just a God's gift?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's probably God's gift. But you mentioned the eye-hand coordination, the thing that his dad, the contraption, the quick swing.
Well, that's just a baseball thing. He was good at the other sports.
I just think I don't know if it's genetics or what all played into it, and that's the other thing is like, he's super competitive. Like, that's totally against like his personality. People
you would look at
and people rip him all the time because of his demeanor, but he was one of the most competitive athletes I've been around. And I watched him in all those sports as a high school and just loved to compete and loved to play against great competition. So it was fun to see his career from the start of it all the way through retirement.
Did you get up at 4 a.m. yesterday to watch the U.S. soccer team versus Sweden?
I did not. I saw it on Twitter right away. But, we had our soccer writer, John, before the thing started, he basically predicted, he said, all their best players are injured. Yes, they have this mystique and they're defending champs and they haven't lost very much on the world stage, but this is not that team.
Yeah.
He said anyone who really knows soccer knows that they're not the favorite.
And they were kind of showing that in pool
and
play.
It showed it, yeah. So it wasn't a great surprise.
Yeah. I won't get into the political side of it, but I find it interesting. They're like an American team that has a lot of people cheering against them.
Which is, yeah.
We don't need to get into that.
I'll let Rosie handle that one.
We don't need to get into that, though. Matt Dumba, I know you've covered him before for the Minnesota Wild. He's his tenure. We knew it was coming.
Yeah,
but it's officially over. I guess maybe the dollar amount he got and then the contract length.
Why did it take so long, do you think, for him?
I think, my assumption is we were waiting for the Erik Karlsson domino to fall. So Erik Karlsson got traded from San Jose to Pittsburgh. He was your elite of the elite offensive defenseman on the market. The fact that Dumba signed basically the same day he got traded, I would just figure that was it. But, the other part is maybe he was hoping for more money elsewhere, right? I mean, a guy who was making $6 million a year, he had a 5-year, $30 million contract here, and just getting 1 year at, $3.9 million?
Yeah. Surprising a little bit. I don't know if it's age, if it's, I thought he was a good player. Obviously, he'd have that one or two gaffes where people would hammer him on, and I remember covering one game where he did a drop pass that I think got picked off, and it's like, why? But things like that. But I thought he was a good player, right? But more so, he did a lot of good in the community, a lot of good, and it was something near and dear to him, where there's, making the sport more diverse, helping out underprivileged communities. Just a really solid person for your organization in terms of wanting to use his platform for good and to try to change. And so that part, I think people should applaud a lot and remember that he really did a lot of great things for this community.
Yeah, the on ice part of it, he kind of had an interesting career, like a Jekyll and Hyde career, where the beginning of his career, early in his career, as you said, making defensive gaffes, but he was showing some offensive promise and some offensive prowess, right? Like he had 50 points 1 year, 2017, 2018. The following year after his 50-point season, he had a stretch through December where he had 12 goals, 10 assists in 32 games, which for a defenseman, those are big-time numbers. Like, people were saying Norris Trophy potential at that moment. I mean, we're not talking that long ago, but 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And he ends up, because hockey is dumb sometimes, feeling like he had to get in a fight with Kachuk. It hurts his pectoral. Yes. And offensively, he has never been the same from that moment. Never shown a sign. And even in the last year or two, he's not even on the power play.
Yeah, that was his thing.
Yeah,
right?
That's why we drafted the guy. Yeah, but for him to transform his game from that moment to where he became a quality, solid defensive player.
Yeah,
not showing the offensive power for and when you're making $6 million plus, we need more than just being a good defensive player, but. He went from being pretty bad defensively with offensive promise to very little offense and being a pretty quality defensive player you can throw out there with Brodin, on it and play 20 minutes a game.
And you wonder, too, is that just experience part of that, too? Like, maybe not just a cognizant shift that, hey, I got to change my whole game, but just, more experiences. Like, I got to be able to do this. I got to be more responsible defensively than maybe he was early in his career.
Yeah.
But you wonder how much that injury really did not derail, but sidetrack his,
Well, I mean, for all we know, it's still bothering, right? And for a guy that was taking slap shots all the time, you might just not have the same strength, right?
Yes. Yeah. And he missed a large chunk of that season, right?
He did.
Yeah. So,
all because of a dumb code that he's got to get in a fight after a clean hit.
Every time I write about that, I get just hammered in.
Oh yeah. People. Oh, so do I, and I'm a hockey guy.
It's so I don't understand.
I'm about to get an email and text right now.
I'm fine with the heat of the moment fight, but it's the orchestrated ones right off the face-off. I'm like, really?
I'm
like
with you.
Is that you need that to get you going? Now,
I still don't like that when players are playing within the rules of the game and have to stand up for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what Dumbo was doing. He made a clean hit. That's what the rules of the game. He didn't get a penalty.
Yeah.
The officials didn't put him in the penalty box.
This is where I get the you don't know hockey. You're from Tennessee.
Yeah.
I get that every time, but I don't.
Well,
get
I play
it.
hockey and I still get that.
I don't get it, but I hope Wild fans look back at his tenure favorably. I think in time they will.
Yeah.
Right, because I think he was a good player for them who did a lot of great things off the ice.
Maybe he'll come back someday. That's what I'm saying. We're going to have a lot of money clearing up in 2 years from now.
When he's 2 years older, I don't know.
Well, I'm not saying you're going to pay him a lot, but he might do the old go down and play in Arizona. You don't make the playoffs. He's only on a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
Could be back on the market. He might be playing 1 year at a time at this stage, and you can give him like an Alex Goligoski role in the future.
Never close the door. Never burn bridges. Right.
Last question for you: Vikings, Seahawks Thursday night. What are you looking for in a first preseason game out of this team?
They won't play anybody.
No.
Regulars. I want to see Brian Flores' defense in a game and not just a controlled practice and all that. I want to see. Now they're not going to show anything. They're not going to do a lot of exotic blitzes that we're going to see during the regular season, but just to see what it looks like and how different it might look from in terms of the aggressiveness and moving guys around than what we saw last year. So probably the first look at that's the most interesting thing to me.
Actually, before we leave, I know you're a basketball guy. So Wolves, Gophers basketball, anything excite you about those two, their seasons coming up here?
Wolves, just see what they can be when they're healthy, right? They need to make a big leap this year to know, is this experiment going to work or are you going to have to trade Towns? And I don't know how, and even if it works, they may still have to trade him because I don't know how you make all the money work when you're talking about Ant's contract, his contract, Jay McDaniel's going to get a contract, Gobert's contract. I don't know how that financial puzzle works. So I think eventually you're going to have to trade Towns, but I'm curious to see if they're all healthy, what that looks like. And then Ben Johnson's group, it's, they need to make a big jump because we've seen, I think Mark Cole said there's an expectation. He's going to be supportive of Ben, but they need to start winning and showing that this thing's going somewhere.
Yeah, I think he might be coaching for his job this year.
Could be.
Thanks for your help. I know you're going to be helping out for Common during the state fair this year since
my guy Common.
Since Mark Rosen can't show up to all of them because he thinks his wedding is important. Who schedules a wedding the week of the state fair?
You don't do it. That's right.
Probably his wife. That's probably.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks, Chip. Pair and a Spare podcast. You're about to tape it right now?
Right now, 5 minutes.
And people can find that on the iHeartRadio app?
Yes, sir.
Where they get their podcast?
Yeah.
All right. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Chip. Chip Scoggins, columnist, Star Tribune. Max is with me. Tenna B, 1 more hour. In for Paul Allen, though PA will be on noon to 3 live from Vikings training camp at TCO today. Mark Rosen, a rare 11 o'clock appearance. He's next.